Hello everyone, welcome to PythoVibes YouTube channel. We have our next interview question, which is to find the most common element in a list or frequently occurred element in a list. We have multiple ways to solve this kind of question, like by using max function or by using dictionary, which holds each number as a key and the corresponding occurrences as its values. And by importing counter class from the collections module also, we can solve this kind of question. We will look at the first approach and then I will explain the other ways too. So you might say that if we can pass key to max function as a count of each element in a list, and that gives us the most common element in an array. But when we have the large data set, that will have more complexity. First, let me show that how we can get the most common element using the max function. Like most common equals to max of list comma key equals to list dot count. And at the end, I'm just returning some message using the f string, like most common element would be this most common. So let me run this. We got this element as 2. But when we have large data set, it will have more complexity. To avoid that, we can convert that list into set data type, like most common equals to max of set of this list. So here what is happening? So set of list will be holding these values. It has 1, 2 and 3. Only these 3 values it holds, because we could see that these are the unique elements in this list. So by converting this list to the set data type, we can avoid the duplicate elements and then we can ensure the faster counting. We will use the max function with the key argument set to list.count here. This will calculate the frequency of each unique element in a list. The element with the highest frequency is returned as our result. So let me save it and run it. Here we could see that most common element as 2. Next, we will move on to the second approach by using the dictionary. Here we will be initializing one empty dictionary called frequency dict, which will hold the occurrences of each element in this list. And then we will iterate over all the elements in a list for element in list. And then if the element is already existed in the frequency dict, then we will increase the frequency of that element by 1. Otherwise, if it is finding for the first time, we will just make that entry with 1, so that whenever it encounters for the first time, it will store that particular element with the occurrence of 1. And then after finding the frequency of each element, we will just use the max function, like most common. I will just take the same variable most common, and then for the max function I'll be passing this frequency dict, and the key would be frequency dict dot get, so that it will check the each key in this dictionary. So after processing all the elements, we are using the max function with the key argument set to frequency dict dot get. This will ensures that the element with the highest frequency is been selected as most common element. At the end, the element with the highest frequency is returned as a result. Let me save it and run it. We could see that most common element is 2. Let me explain what is happening here. When we are passing this list as our input to the find most common element function, we will get this list as our input to this function. So we got this as our input, and frequency dict would be empty initially, and then we are looping over all these elements. For the first iteration, we have element as 1. It will check whether this 1 is in the frequency dict or not. No, it is not existed. So the frequency dict will be updated using frequency dict equals to, it will have key as 1 and the value would be 1. And then for the next iteration, it will take element as 2. It will check whether this element 2 is in the frequency dict or not. No, it is not having the 2 number. Then it will make an entry 2 with the value 1, because it is finding for the first time. So whenever we find it for the first time, we just have to make a note of entry as 1, its occurrence as 1. And for the fourth iteration, we have element as 2. Now it will check whether this 2 is in the frequency dict or not. Yes, it is already existed. So then what will happen? We are increasing the count of that particular element by 1. Already we have 2 with the value 1. If we add 1 plus 1, it will become 2. and again it will check for the last element, which is also 2, and it will check this 2 is in the frequency dict or not. Yes, it is in the frequency dict, and it will increase the count by 1. Then it becomes like this, frequency dict with 1 colon 1, 2 colon 4, 3 colon 1. So these many times it has found these elements 1, 2, 3. At the end we are just returning the key with the highest value here. So we have highest value for 2. So that key is been returned as a most common element. If you want to get this value corresponding to the most common element, then we can do one thing. Anyhow, we have the key as most in the most common, which is 2. We just have to get this frequency dict dot get off. We will pass this key most common. So then we will have our value of occurrences. We can print this here itself. So we got this 2 is existed for 4 times. Next, we will look at the last approach, which is by using the counter class from collections module. If we observe the current code here, we are manually creating a dictionary which holds the elements and its corresponding occurrences. But if we use the counter class, it will create a dictionary that contains the frequency of each element in the input list. So let me do that. Firstly, I will import it from collections, import counter. So here, instead of creating all these dictionaries here, I'll just use this counter class, and then I will pass my input list. So I'll just keep these lines as it is. By using these lines also, we can find the most common element. Let me run it. So we got counter class. If I print this frequency dict, I could see the 2, 4, 1, comma 1. And then we also can see the count of the most common element value, how many times it has existed. It has existed for 4 times. And what is that element which is most common element is 2. So instead of using max function, we can use the one of the inbuilt function which is there for counter class. Here, let me do that. Frequency dict dot most common, and for this most common, how many number of pairs you want to see. Most common pairs, that means top 3 elements or top 2 elements, whatever the number of elements you wanted to see, that you can pass here. Right now I wanted to see only the single element, that is the reason I just passed it as 1. So let me capture it into this most common variable so that it will hold it. And if I would run it, I could see one list with the first tuple, because I'm trying to fetch only the first entry. If I wanted to see top 3 most occurred elements, then I can pass the number 3 to this most common. So this way we could find it. Initially the first number is indicating the element in this list, and the second number is indicating the how many times that particular element is existed in this input list. So if we want the element, we can give just the zeroth entry we want, right? So 0 of 0 will gives us the most common element. How many times it has existed, that you can pass it 0 of 1. This will gives you the how many times that element has occurred for these many times. Let me run it. Now you can see that most common element, I can print even that element also. I will do one thing here, element. So to fetch the element, 0 of 0 will be my element occurred for these many times. So if I would run it again, I can see the complete message saying that most common element is 2 and it has occurred for 4 times. So this way we can find the most common element or most frequently occurred element in a list. So when we have a larger data set, this counter class is the best approach to use, and it is the one of the efficient way to solve these kind of questions. You can use it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it valuable. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to PythoVibes YouTube channel for more engaging content. Feel free to share your thoughts or questions in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.